computer.
Yeah.
Okay, yes, we're gonna record this meeting.
Okay, we're still waiting on some people, I think. And let's see if we can get myself in there properly.
Perfect.
Right, is that good?
Here. So if they have any questions, they can like send the questions all through the chat. About how many people gonna be
There's
there?
going to be 7, I think.
7 total?
Yeah. Isn't Fairfax really selected? That just us.
It's me.
Oh, I see.
Okay, so who else are we waiting for?
Well, several. Yeah, we only got 3.
Okay.
How are you feeling, Emmett?
Well, better. You know, it's, I just went in to have what I thought was a little minor surgery on skin cancer thing. And, but as it turns out, whenever you have an operation on your forehead, that blood can run down. And so it gets in my eyes, and then I got all this puffiness underneath and not very pretty. But he said in 10 days it should be gone. So, you know, I just have to hope I don't scare anybody. And so it is a little hard on my eyes to be looking at a screen a real lot, you know, but so trying to take it a little bit easy, but it's not life-threatening. I'm fine.
That's nice to hear.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's a good thing. Okay, we got 1, 2, 3, 4. A few more to go. Are some people from not at the office? Some people are at home, or?
Yes.
Okay.
So we can actually start.
Okay, all right. Okay, well, thank you guys for asking me to go over the contract with you all. I would have liked to come over to your office, but I think this actually works out a little bit better for me and less stress. Okay, so we want to go to, how do I get to that screen? But the,
Do you want me to split the
yeah,
screen?
yeah.
Okay. This one. $12, no, okay. I think the presentation. It's right here.
Here it is, okay.
Okay, hold on, but let me.
Other way around.
The other way around.
Yeah. Well, I guess it doesn't matter, but I like it that way.
Okay, yeah, no worries. We'll do it the other way.
Okay, can you see that screen where I got the changes to the contract forms?
Can you?
We have to share our screen. Okay, hold on.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
just a minute,
sorry.
yeah.
Sorry. I thought that we were sharing the screen, but we're not. So let me just share the screen right here. Okay, now I think you can see our screen, right?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Let me just go back. Hold on. So on this one. That's on this one on the right.
Okay.
There you go.
Yeah, and then how do I get that one down? Yeah, or just move it around, make it smaller. Yeah, okay.
Put it right here.
Okay, can you now see I got changes to the contract forms on one side and the contract on the other, right? Everybody can see that?
Yes.
Do I have to unmute?
Yeah. They can
Oh,
hear you.
You can.
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, you can see it. Okay. Okay, great. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to take you through, the changes for the 2022 contract. Now, I know you've already been working with it, so perhaps you're already familiar, but, let's just go through it and then we can have any questions you have and just go back and forth. Now, wait a minute, how do I, oh, I know, I gotta go to
Play.
play. Where do I find that?
Oh, you can't see it.
Can't see it, but that thing there,
Why?
was it up here?
Yeah, it's right here. Okay, it's right here. Let me,
Oh, there it is, yeah.
but it's not working because
Okay, sorry for the technology thing here.
that is not.
yeah, no, it's not because this screen's here. Okay, so we can move it right here. Let me just put
Okay,
it
put
right
that
here.
down there and then hit the play.
There you go.
Okay, there we go. Okay. So here I'm just taking it in the order. I'm going to highlight certain parts of it that I think are important. So again, at the very, very beginning, it looks a little different than the previous one in that it has the sales price at the top, followed by down payment, and then any particular different kinds of financing you're going to have. And this was done, I understand, to make it a little bit easier for listing agents and the seller to, quickly look at who's got the best offer, and also to make it a little bit easier to make it clear that you have a all cash offer. And that's about all that really needs to be said about that, I think, unless anybody has any questions. So in paragraph 2, price and financing, reformatted for consistency to offer cash, accommodate cash offers. The paragraph 2E, financing contingency, removes the requirement for seller to comply with lender requirements, since that was already addressed in the title paragraph. And 2F clearly identifies whether there is an appraisal contingency for ease of comparing offers. It also clearly states that the seller shall provide appraiser reasonable access to the property if contract is contingent on financing or appraisal. But, even if it wasn't contingent on financing or appraisal, the lender is going to want to have an appraisal done. So, you just have to let your sellers know that, look, you got to let the appraiser in. We're not going to be able to move forward on this thing unless we've got a cash contract. So 2G, that was paragraph 15 in the old contract. That's just buyer's representations about whether you will or will not occupy the property. You're going to be an investor or you're going to be living in the home. Now, paragraph 3, deposit, that now, and if we need to look at the contract, just let me know and I'll put the contract up. So it now provides the seller with a timely remedy if the buyer fails to deliver the EMD to the escrow agent. The seller can declare the contract void if the EMD is not delivered by the due date. But then they do indicate that if the buyer hustles and gets the default cured, gets it in and delivered before the delivery of the void notice, well, then we can continue to move ahead. But this does provide a way to put some pressure on that buyer to get that EMD in and in on time. Paragraph 4, that's settlement. And now this is a big change, it clarifies there can only be one settlement agent. So split settlements probably aren't going to happen much anymore, because when you do a split settlement, it's actually, there's an extra cost involved, and that's not what's supposed to be happening, so that doesn't mean you have to, the seller has to be at the same table. The seller can always close a day or two early if for some reason they don't want to meet with the buyer, but it's going to have to be at the buyer's choice of settlement company. And it does make it clear in there also that it is the buyer's choice, and that the seller cannot make using their title company as a requirement to win a contract. Now, I know this is a tricky one, because in some ways, in this incredible seller's market, that buyers and buyers agents feel, kind of pressured, even if it isn't explicit, that, gee, if I don't settle with them, maybe that throws me out of the running. Now, it's against the law, it should not be, but I know that that emotion is in there. And so if they want to settle with the seller's company, well, they can't, the title company, they can, but they are not required to in any way. And as a matter of fact, it's against the law, to make it a requirement. It's just that people can put a subtle, seller prefers kind of thing in there, but it doesn't mean anything, because the seller doesn't have the right to prefer. Any question on that? So then we go to delivery. That didn't change much. It was just a little editing for clarity. Paragraph 7, the residential disclosure, that requires that the buyer sign that one-page DPOR acknowledging their rights under the VRPDA property disclosure. Now, that's always been the case, but it's now it's just a required thing. Okay. Paragraph 10, property maintenance condition. So again, this is about making the home available for inspections and who gets to go to inspections. So it clearly states that the seller shall provide the buyer, the broker, and the inspector or inspectors reasonable access to the property if contract is contingent on home inspection. If it's only contingent on appraisal, well, parties can negotiate access. You still got that, if there's a lender involved, there has to be an appraisal. It addresses walkthrough inspections. That's different than, the home inspection. And that only the buyer and broker. You can't bring your inspectors or contractors with you unless you work something out with the seller, the listing side, in writing agreed upon. And it makes no allowance for inspection for informational purposes. We do have another, inspection for void purposes only, but there's no such thing as inspection for informational purposes, which I had seen many times. Agents wrote that in. That's no longer allowable. Paragraph 11, possession date. It adds, not only do you need to turn over the keys, but you got to turn over the mailbox keys too. And this is interesting, and control of any smart devices. You can't just, give them the smart device and they have no control of it. You got to give them you can't be, sitting afar and turning their lights on and off and things like that. So that is an interesting change. And I know we've all been running into that more often now that so many people have smart devices. So that includes, for the heating, cooling, lights, all the different, that door thing that looks out and all that stuff. Okay, this little thing about the check boxes that is, instead of having yes and no option, which is always kind of confusing, it's just yes, check yes if it is, and otherwise, if it's not checked, it isn't. 17, paragraph 17, wood destroying insects. It clarifies that the seller must perform any treatment or repair. That was always in there, but it seemed like maybe sometimes the seller didn't think they had to make the repairs. Well, they do. Paragraph 20, title. If title is not marketable and insurable at settlement, the seller is in default. This is one of the few cases where the seller's in default. In other words, if there's something holding up title, the seller's in default and will have to work out an agreement with the buyer to extend the settlement date. And it prohibits the seller from unilaterally, this is interesting, I've never run into it, but I guess it must happen, where a seller can declare an easement or covenant or other restrictions on the title between the time of contract ratification and settlement. All of a sudden you find you got an extra driveway going into another property on your property. I never heard of it, but I guess it must have happened, especially maybe more in rural settings. But they make it clear that that's not allowable, and it shouldn't be. Paragraph 27, void contract, clarifies that if the buyer fails to deliver the EMD, that a release must be signed.
Oh, I have a question.
Yeah.
Paragraph number 20, I believe it was, about the
paragraph. Say it again.
Paragraph number 20, right? It was paragraph number 20 about the easement and stuff.
Yeah.
So can you clarify a little bit more? Like, yeah, it was paragraph number 20.
Yeah, what it says is that the seller cannot unilaterally make that change. I mean, you can always negotiate something if there's a reason that he needs access to the back 40, or I don't know, what the situation would be, but that can always be agreed upon. But it can't be a surprise to the buyer to find out at settlement that he doesn't have complete control of his property.
So if the driveway is on my client's side, but there's an easement, like there's a shared driveway, but most of it on the buyer side, and it will be on the deed, or it will.
Well, yeah, and there could be, like, it could be, something, from the electrical company or, some reason why there has to be that easement. And, as long as that's disclosed and everybody knows about it, that's fine. What they're just trying to get at here is, you can't surprise somebody with it.
Yes, it will be disclosed before in the addendums, or it will be like disclosed with when the title company will do the search.
Well, the title company would certainly find it, but most likely the seller knows that there is an easement there, and he should disclose it. It's just that simple. And but it will be found. Go ahead.
I really just ran into that problem where seller even doesn't know, and I wasn't sure where to look for this easement because there was another house on the right side. The driveway was going on that on the buyer's property, and they were sharing. So I asked the seller's agent, but she wasn't sure. And
Okay,
do we still have an option to get out of the contract if we find out?
sure,
during-
sure, yeah. You know, and the thing is that, I mean, you can go to the county and, you know, you can find out, you know, that information. That's the best place to go. And, but yeah, if that's something that's not acceptable to the buyer, well, you know, you have a number of options to get out of the contract. So, or not even make the offer at all, you know. So, yeah.
The easement cannot itself be a reason to get out, right?
Not, well, it can be in the sense that any reason, you know, like say, home inspection. I mean, you don't have to even give a reason, just use that to get out. Or, you know, or HOA docs, or, you know, whatever other options you have to get out. But, you know, and, you know, usually in something like that, the biggest thing is to be in good communication with the other side. And, you know, it's not something to be getting mad and jumping up and down about. That hardly ever works, you know. Just, okay, hey, this is a surprise. We didn't know this, you know. How in the world, you know, my buyer's really upset about it and doesn't want that. So, you know, look, you know, we're gonna want to pull out, you know. And so, or can the seller, you know, work out something with us? You know, is there some way that we could agree upon use that is okay? That's what I would say.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so paragraph 30, time is of the essence. You know, remember it used to have this TRID thing that, you know, if for some reason due to COVID that there might be some delays, it had that language in there. That's taken out because almost nobody's had that problem. You know, that lenders have figured a way to close in 30 days or even quite a bit less. So we didn't really need that language anymore. Now, and again, if you want to extend the settlement for any reason, parties, you know, you can just mutually agree at any time, but there seems to be something that needs to be done. Paragraph 32, entire agreement incorporates, okay, makes it a little more coherent, but the most important thing is it removes other provisions. And I used to like that other provisions that I could write something in there, but that is practicing law, and they do not want you writing language in the terms of the contract unless you got a law degree. Or not a law license, and you're, you know, and accepted on the board. But so, and they do indicate you could use an addendum to make some changes, but you know, they've taken away that opportunity to write in other things. So then other than that, the contract's now only 12 pages instead of 13. So that's supposed to make us happier, I guess. So other contract forms changes, the home inspection and radon testing contingency addendum. It was always in there, but it clarifies it a bit that the utilities must be on in service for all inspections, including the walkthrough inspection. How are you going to do a walkthrough if you don't have the lights on and electricity? And consequences for not delivering required documents on time. The inspection.
So, I see there are now dates.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so now I see there are that paragraph, right? Can you hear me?
Okay, let me see if I can get to that. Okay. So here it is. Yeah, and it kind of makes it nice. You got little check boxes as to what you're removing. The home inspection contingency, the radon, private well or water, whatever, septic, whatever. You just check that box, and then you got a place, and they make it kind of a small space, kind of indicating maybe it's a better idea not to put too much stuff in there if you want to keep this contract going. And of course, you have to include the inspection report, with the removal addendum. Okay.
I actually have a question on the home inspection addendum itself.
Okay.
If we go on that.
Okay. There we are.
Yes, the first paragraph.
Which paragraph?
The very first one. Miscellaneous provisions. The very first paragraph. Paragraph 1.
Oh, okay. So what's the question?
There's a dash. So can you a little bit explain that? What does that exactly mean? That if we put 3 days, 5 days, so that means that if we do a walkthrough, do we get that many days extra, or how does that work?
Oh, no, the walkthrough is a totally separate thing. It has nothing to do with the home inspection. That's a totally separate. It's not connected in any way to the home inspection. Home inspection is this period of time that you've agreed, that you put down, most people put like usually 10 days down to do the home inspection, just to allow a weekend to get in there. Sometimes, it's up to you and the buyer, but but the utilities must be on, and no matter what the inspection, so they must be on for, which is a different thing, they walk through. And the walkthrough's purpose is to see that, well, if any improvements or repairs had been agreed to, that they were actually done. And, or if there was any damage done to the house in the move out, like, maybe they gouged a wall, or they broke something, or broke a window, or whatever. Those are the things you look for in the walkthrough inspection. So that's not to add anything new. It's, although it could be that something was covered up by furniture that you didn't see, that there was a hole in the floor. Well, that would be kind of a big one that you might want to bring up. But that's the purpose of the walkthrough. It's not to have another home inspection, totally different thing. And it did say, remember earlier on, it said that at the walkthrough, it's only for the agent, the representative of the broker, and the buyer or buyers who go to that. They can't bring, without having an approval from the seller side, they can't bring in more inspectors at the walkthrough. That's for this part. This is the home inspection. And again, you can have home inspection with option to negotiate repairs or void, just like it was before, or home inspection to void only. In other words, you'll do the inspection. You're not going to give them a list of things to fix. But you can pull out if you see anything, or even just whatever issue you want. You don't have to give a reason. you can always pull out on that inspection. Radon testing, that hasn't really changed here. That's still the same thing, but it is also clear it's the seller's duty to ameliorate or repair or satisfy the need to correct the problem with radon. And usually what that is just getting some air pulled out of the basement, with an air pump kind of device. Okay, does that make sense?
Yes. Now, I was
Everybody okay?
paragraph number 1, even before the home inspection, where it's asking about the utilities and stuff. It's 1A. On the home inspection addendum.
Home inspection addendum.
Yes, so 1A.
Okay, right at the beginning, right at the top.
Yes.
If for any reason each are not in service, home inspection deadline, radon testing deadline will be extended until, well, you got to, whatever you can agree upon. The electricity may be out for some reason. I don't know what it would be, but again, you got to talk to the other side. I mean, this is could be just a couple of days. It could be a week. It depends on what's the reason why it's not in service. But that again, you just have to agree with the other side what's going to do. I mean, they're either going to agree to it and sign it, or they're not. And if they're not, I'm sure you don't want to buy it. So there's no set number. I mean, it just depends on the situation, right? Am I missing something in your question? I don't.
No, I mean, if we read this paragraph, it's saying that we get extra days at walkthrough if the utilities are not on.
No, that's not what it says. It's extended to the point where the utilities would be in service. I mean, you can't do your inspection if the utilities aren't in service. So you're just negotiating how much time do we need to allow, and how much is the buyer willing to hang around with it? I mean, I don't know what, normally it's not a big deal. Somebody turned it off, thinking they'd save a few bucks or something like that. And then they realized that was a stupid thing to do. Maybe even the listing agent didn't know they did it. And usually it's a matter of just getting to the utility companies and getting it back on and finding a day that works for the buyer to do the inspection.
Thank you.
Right? I mean, there's no set thing there. It's whatever works, right? Okay. Okay. All right. Okay. Let's see. Exclusive right to sell, exclusive list. All they've done there is that they've taken out that no checkbox. It's just the yes box only. If it's not a yes, then that's an automatic no. New optional. Okay, now this is kind of this. There's always been this seller's. Yeah, let me just find this. I think we've gone too far. Okay, it's the listing company can indicate, here are the things. Here we are. Information for making an offer, and that, if if you want nice, clean contracts from the buyer, if you're on the listing side, you want them to fill it out, their offer, correctly. And if you give them the information, put this in that little box on the MLS for documents. So this should be one of them, along with your DPOR and your ABA. And so in other words, you're telling them, okay, here's the things that, we want in the offers sent to us. That makes sense. But this is a new one. This one, buyer offer cover sheet. Again, both of these are optional. You don't have to use them. Some people have their own cover sheets. You guys might even have that. I don't know. But if you don't, this buyer one it's new and it's a really good idea. Clarifying what your offer is, the sales price, the down payment, the financing, seller subsidy, et cetera, and what contingency, so they can quickly see, if yours has 2 contingencies checked and somebody else has got 4, well then, okay, I kind of maybe like this one better already. But, also putting in, the earnest money, who's the escrow agent, et cetera, and your information, et cetera. But, they add something at the bottom, I think is kind of interesting. So it says by checking here, let me see if I can make that bigger. Yeah. I can move this over here. Yeah, okay, here, let me do this. It says by checking here, cooperating broker agent requests in accordance with standard practice 1-7 of the Code of Ethics of the National Association of Realtors that the listing broker / agent affirm by signing below and promptly returning to cooperating broker agent that this offer has been submitted to the seller or seller has waived the obligation to have this offer presented. So, because a lot of times it's so frustrating to buyers and buyers agents that they don't even know if that contract was presented to the seller. And especially when there's multiple offers, it's very frustrating. Now, this doesn't guarantee that they're going to do anything. They may not agree to sign this, but I think it's a really cool way to remind the other side that the Code of Ethics is much stricter than the Virginia law. Virginia law just says, that the listing agent must, in a reasonable time, present the offer to the seller. But in the Code of Ethics, it said as soon as possible. And so it's just making it clearer that, well, okay, there's some, you want to be a good agent, right? Mr. Listing Agent, and please present my offer. I don't know. You don't have to do this if you think that sounds like it's pressuring the listing agent in some way that maybe they wouldn't be so happy with your offer. I don't know. I think it's a good idea. And I don't know. What do you all think?
I think that's really actually going to help when you get multiple offers, I guess, so you can prepare them on here.
Well, it just, the main thing is, I think that, it's usually the multiple offer situation where this happens because, and of course, in all of this, a seller, they can say, okay, we're going to review offers on Saturday. And then come Tuesday, they said, we've already ratified a contract with somebody, because the seller can change their mind. They can do what they want. This doesn't have any effect on that. It's just, you're just trying to nudge the listing agent to at least present your offer. And that's what that's about. But it also, by making it nice and clear that you followed the need to have clarification as to what your offer is about. This is a very, very nice way to summarize what it is that you're offering to the seller. So I think it's a really nice thing to use, and you ought to at least consider doing that.
Do you know which folder in .loop this is saved in?
Pardon me?
Do you know which folder in .loop this is saved in?
It would be under, our main thing, that has all of our Virginia documents, that top one. I can't remember the name of it top of my head, but yeah, it's a new form. It's in Docs Plus. You just go to Docs Plus. Oh, by the way, I think, there's all this talk about Remind going away. It's been bought by some other combination of companies, but Docs Plus was purchased by NVAR and will continue. We're still going to be able to get all of our documents from Docs Plus. It's free, as part of your NVAR membership. And so that's going to continue. And so when you just, go to the NVAR, in Docs Plus, it's all alphabetical. And so you would find this document there. And I'm pretty sure it's in, I haven't actually looked in .loop, but I'm sure it's there, just in our main one at the very top. Okay. Let's see, what else do we have? Okay, I think that's that for that. And let's see, I think there were questions, a sales contract for unimproved land. Was there questions about that one? There was something, I think Tina asked me for.
It was more like addendums, contingency and clauses, this one. If you can go over each paragraph, what it means, and I guess how to fill it out.
Yeah, you have to speak a little louder, I can't.
No, I said, if we can go over contingency and clauses, because then can you explain what each paragraph means and when to use that paragraph?
In what form now?
Contingency and clauses addendum.
Contingencies and clauses. Okay. Yeah. So that covers a variety of different types of things. So like the first one, sale of buyer's property and kick out. Okay. That's in a situation where you don't see it much in this market, but it used to be that, well, you'd make an offer contingent upon the buyer's sale of their home. Well, I mean, right now that gets like tossed out immediately. Nobody's going to allow that. But the market is starting to change. Maybe that'll start coming back. Every market always does change. And so that's a situation where the seller would say, okay, I'm willing to allow you so many days to get a ratified contract, and then I'll go ahead and ratify this contract with you based on that contingency. Now, the buyer would want the maximum amount of days, the seller wants the minimum amount of days. So you just have to and then the kick out is that, okay, after that day is over, then I'm going back on market and, you're out. That's what that one is for. The settlement of buyer's property, that's for like a coinciding settlement where, you need both to happen nearly simultaneously. And the seller will or will not accept assignment of funds. Well, if it's, that quick, you almost have to have assignment of funds to make it work. But again, those are negotiable things. Now, sometimes you now see contingent on seller purchasing another home. Well, that's where the seller says, well, I need so many days after ratification to ratify a contract for me to purchase another home, because actually that's kind of a tough one these days, because you sell your house and you made, oh boy, you got a lot more money than you thought. But now you got to go out there and buy one, and you're going to have to pay a whole lot more money than you thought. And you're now in competition yourself. And so the seller could set a contingency and say, hey, look, I just got to have some time to make sure I can get another house. My kids got to be in school by a certain time, et cetera, whatever the reasoning. So that's when you would use that. Backup contract, and again, you rarely see these, but so like say somebody just is in love with the house, you already ratified with somebody else, but they say, look, if anything goes wrong, please, I want to be the next in line. The difficulty of this one is being next in line means that at any time that it could happen that something goes wrong with the primary contract. And in that case, the backup automatically, immediately becomes the ratified contract. Well, maybe by that time, the buyer has kind of changed their mind and thinking that, well, maybe there's another house I like just as well. And they could just end up being the ratified contract, not at a time that they expected. So it's rarely done. But, if you just have somebody who says, I just got to have this house in case it becomes available, then, and they're ready and able, and they don't need to buy another property or anything, or sell their house, then could be used. Now, as is, this is as is, where is, this is like the seller would set like all clauses pertaining to the property, free and clear of trash and debris, are deleted. Buyer assumes responsibility for compliance with all laws and regulations regarding smoke detectors. All clauses pertaining to termites and wood destroying insects deleted. These don't all need to be clicked, but usually when they're doing as is, whereas, they're clicking all these boxes. Clauses pertaining to seller's compliance with violation of HOAs or condo associations, et cetera. So, when you buy a home like that, that usually is okay if you are a contractor, you're a house flipper, you're okay with all that because you're just assuming that this house is a tear down, then fine. But that in some sense, all property in Virginia is as is, but not in the sense of all these other things being eliminated. Unrepresented seller or builder and buyer's broker. Okay. So that's, let's say, a situation where maybe it is a custom builder that the that they're unrepresented. I mean, they're a builder and they don't have an agent, and you're the buyer's broker. You just want to be sure you're going to be paid a commission. And so this is a way to specify in particular that you're going to be paid certain percentage of the total sales price or a certain amount of money in cash. It's, that's what that's for. 1031 exchange, again, that's a tax way for people who have investment properties. It doesn't really affect the buyer in any way. There's an intermediary that holds the monies. It's a tax issue for the seller. And again, they're just further explaining that in that next paragraph. Real estate cooperative. I've not done this ever. Required public offering statement. Real estate cooperative. I don't know what that's for. Anybody ever use this? I don't know. I don't know what a co-op really is. And that comes, yeah, I could look it up for you. I honestly just don't know. So escalation addendum, there's really no change here. This is the same one we've been using. Again, it's get used a real lot in this market. The market is really interesting. It is starting to change. I mean, I've actually seen contracts coming through where the seller is crediting the buyer for closing costs. Now, usually that's a house that has not sold in a while. So it's, if something's been on the market 15, 20, 25 days, that's like it's been forever on the market. And actually a great opportunity for buyers to get in the driver's seat for once. They're, the seller's sweating it out, and, instead of you having to escalate the price, you can actually, negotiate a lower price. Sellers post-settlement occupancy, again, we do see that fairly often now, people giving that. Now, there's all kinds of ways to do it. I do see, unbelievably, people charging nothing. You can have 30 days free, 60 days free. Normally what you would have in a normal market, you would ask the seller to pay the cost of a mortgage, PITI, the whole thing, plus HOA fees, et cetera. But, when you're in competition and you think, well, I got 30 days before my first payment's due, I think I can live with giving them 30 days free. Well, okay, if you think that works, that's fine. That's up to the buyer. And then you have occupancy deadlines. If the seller overstays his time, then there's usually a double penalty for doing that. And usually the buyer is going to want some kind of security deposit just in case there's any damage done to the home. And that would usually be held by escrow agent, that normally say your title company. And now it's the sellers who still are in control of the utilities, and they got to keep the utilities on. And you got to keep your insurance up on it for in case there's any damage to the house. And seller will permit buyer reasonable access to the property and will deliver at least one set of keys at settlement. And if the buyer, needs to see something in the house, they have to ask permission of the seller to come in to even like measure floors or draperies. This buyer's pre-settlement, that is very rare. I've never done it, you know, and it's a really risky thing for a buyer, for a seller to allow a buyer to take possession of the house prior to settlement. I mean, you can just imagine so many things could go wrong, but if there's the only way in which you could sell the house, and again, this doesn't really fit our market at the moment, but there may be a reason that the seller would allow it. Maybe that's the only offer they got. Tina asked about the new home sales addendum. Now, this is a, you know, if your buyer wants to buy a new construction, most of the time you're going to be going with these big firms, you know, that, and they're going to have their own contracts. They're not going to let you change a single thing. But this is for a situation like, say, a custom builder. And, you know, he's not a big company. He's just he just does custom homes. And in this case, if they don't have their own contract system, then you could use this. Or now, actually, what the addendum does, that's like using our regular residential sales contract and taking out some aspects of it that are inappropriate to a new home. And so that's where you would use that. Now, if you were going to do something from scratch, you would use the new home. Well, that's the sales addendum. What happened there? New home construction contract. Again, this is like with a individual builder, custom builder who doesn't have their own contract. And they do say right at the top, seek legal advice before executing. So you want to bring a lawyer in just to make sure you're doing things the right way. And again, it doesn't get used very often. It's I've never done it myself, but you know, there are, you know, and you know, you guys having a big team and everything, maybe this is, you've used this once or twice, I don't know. But you know, it allows for, you know, the normal kinds of things that you would have in a contract adjusted for a new construction. And I think that was all we had. And so that just goes on through it. Otherwise, it looks somewhat like our own. Oh, you did ask about private well and septic. Okay, well, this, you know, this comes up pretty often, you know, that many homes are on septic, even in close-in communities, you know, that they could be on septic. I know little parts of Springfield, Oakton, almost all of that is on septic. Places that, you know, you expect it to be out in the country, and people are wanting to move out these days, and they're, you know, having to deal with private well and septic inspections. Now, and this is a big deal. Now, this, you know, could end up being quite expensive. Even the inspection for septic can be pretty expensive and hard to find inspectors available to do it. There's not a whole bunch of these septic inspectors. And I know I did one where, the septic system was just really crumbling, and it ended up being, well, the inspection cost a fair amount, but and that's paid for by the buyer. But then, you know, the seller had to pay for the repair before, you know, we would agree to buy the house. And man, that was a lot of money. several $1,000s, more than that. I was a bit close to 10. So, you know, but that's the purpose where you would use this. I'm sure this must come up time to time in a big team like you guys got. Any questions on that? No. So that's really all I have, and the rest of it, these are just the changes as they were, you know, put out by NVAR, and I covered all of that. Anything else? Any other kind of questions you'd like to ask?
I will ask my new agents if they want to ask any questions because.
Okay.
Thank you. Do you have any questions on?
No, you asked a couple of times.
And you can call me anytime too, you know, and
Of course.
happy to help answer your questions.
Thank you. It's really good. Yes. Nice, refreshing.
Okay, I don't.
So much, it was really good.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I really appreciate you guys, you know, wanting, I really like the fact that you want to learn, you want to, you know, do the right thing. I rarely see anything wrong with things that come over from Din's office. I mean, you guys do a great job. Yeah, time to time, you know, I'll find a few things, but not too often. So anyway, congratulations, you guys. You had a fabulous year. #1 team by a huge margin. And we are submitting your team for inclusion in the Northern Virginia Magazine Top Producers edition. I think it's going to come out in the latter part of March. And, you know, we'll be, you know, presenting your team as one of the top teams in the whole area. So congratulations to you guys. You're doing just a super job, and keep it up. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And
Okay.
I hope you feel better. And then
Okay.
everything goes.
Okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Okay.
We
I
wish you a
know.
lot of health.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Oh, can we also get the recording?
Yes, you will.
Okay, thank you.